I began my training during my childhood while I was growing up in the US, and at that time I learned Carnatic vocal music and Western classical violin. My childhood was quite filled with music, both of these styles of music, and I also used to listen to Hindustani music at that time, but I hadn't trained in it. So my introduction to Hindustani music was comparatively a little later, and while I was almost at the end of my college studies, and that's when I met my guru, Srimati Aditi Upadhyaya, in Bangalore. And after meeting her and feeling a very strong connection with her as a guru and just as a human being, I came to India to study Hindustani music, just solely to study Hindustani music for a period of time and go deeper into it. At that time, I also had the opportunity to take talim from her father, the late Pandit Dinkar Kaikini, and spend quite a bit of time with him musically, as well as in dialogue about his thoughts on music and his philosophy towards different aspects of composition, performance. And I've also received mentorship from Srimati Shashikala Kaikini, whom I still receive guidance from till today. After moving to Mumbai, which was about 3 years back, I also began to receive talim from Pandit Sudhindra Bhaumik, who belongs to the same parampara and has received talim himself from Pandit Dinkar Kaikini, Pandit K.G. Ginde, Pandit S.C.R. Bhatt, and Pandit Ramrao Naik ji. I've been with Aditi ji for about 13 years now, and I'm really fortunate because when I came back to India to study with her, I ended up living with her and her family, so I learned in the Gurukul fashion, which really was probably the best thing that could have happened to me, especially because I was starting at a later age. So I got a completely immersive experience, and it was very new to me on many levels. I had learned Carnatic, so the whole atmosphere of Hindustani music is slightly different, of course, living in India versus living in the US. So living with her and her family really was a very holistic education for me. And of course, talim-wise, it was just a lifestyle. Of course, the practical aspects of living with your guru that really enhance learning, which is that you're always around them, so you're getting constant feedback and immediate feedback on your riyaz, and it's probably the most efficient way to go about it because the art requires so much time. So the more time you have concentrated with your guru, definitely is a big bonus. During my talim, I also used to visit Bombay as and when I could every few months to spend time with Pandit Dinkar Kaikini ji, and I would take lessons with him, and I would also spend a lot of time just speaking with him about his ideas about music, his thoughts on the creative process, on composition, because he has composed quite a few bandishes and other pieces, not just bandishes, but choruses for Hindustani music in Drupad and Dhamar forms, and music for children. So I spent a lot of time talking to him about where his inspiration came to do these things, and he would often share different anecdotes from his life and his experiences. And after a while, I realized that I was kind of just a recipient of all these interesting tidbits, so I put it together and I wrote a book that shares some of his ideas about music and his guidelines for young students and serious practitioners. whatever he had shared with me that I thought could be relevant to other people in the field. Once I had realized that this is really something I wanted to do, which took me a few years to decide, and in fact in the middle I went back to the US because I wasn't sure if I wanted to dedicate my whole life to music or if I could make a career out of it. And I went back to New York, and I was working actually at Carnegie Hall, where I was still connected with music, and I worked in a program that organized workshops for young professional musicians, and that was also a very wonderful experience for me because I learned so much about the organizational side of music programming, and also the kind of opportunities that can be provided for young musicians, which I wasn't aware of before. So that was wonderful, but at the same time I kept feeling a draw to come back because I felt my heart was more in making music than being associated with music was also gratifying. Making music was the most gratifying for me, so I decided to come back and stay here and devote my life to talim and just pursuing it as however long it takes, because we don't know how long that is, but we just keep doing it. One of the things that drew me to Hindustani music above all the other styles was that I felt it gave me the maximum scope for my personal expression, to develop my idea within a framework, of course, which is established and which we train in for many years. Nonetheless, at the end, you're trying to find a way to translate some kind of emotive content into music. And I felt the most free while I was practicing Hindustani music, the least constrained in terms of improvisation, in terms of lay, in terms of space. And that's why I gravitated towards it. But I may not have realized that if I hadn't trained in these other forms of music, which illuminated the various ways in which music can be approached. And not that there's anything at all better or worse about any of the styles. It's just temperamentally what I was more fond of. I think the lineage that we train in is certainly a very crucial kind of centerpiece of our talim. We can't, there's no denying that the knowledge that you are passed down from your lineage has come through and been culled each step of the way, and I feel it's probably made easier and easier for each generation. The earlier generations have really toiled at it, figured out some things, pass that on to the next generation, and so on and so on. So as it goes further, the more we think on what we have received and give to the next generation, hopefully the more people will be able to absorb the content. My lineage traces back to Pandit Bhatkande ji, and then Pandit S.N. Ratanjankar, followed by Pandit Dinkar Kaikini and my guru, Srimati Aditi Upadhyaya. One can notice that each step of the way, each person has kind of added their own dimension. It's not just creating clones of each other, and I think that's a very important part of the evolution of this music, whether it's a gharana or a parampara, however you're identifying your gayaki. To me, it's important that each generation or each musician even finds their own voice within that gayaki. Otherwise, we're not really moving ahead. And we don't also want to keep hearing many people copying Fayaz Khan Sahab or many people copying any of the legends. The goal is to kind of embrace the spirit of the great masters. That is definitely important, and find a way to channel it through your own expression. I think the city has a wonderful energy, just independent of the music. I think the energy of the city and that aspirational quality to the city that everybody can come to make their dreams come true is very palpable in all fields and all across the board. And musically, I've found it extremely energizing, because there's so much happening, there's so much talent, and there's never a dearth of concerts to listen to, attend, and you're always kind of discovering new things or new musicians, despite though the circles tend to mix and repeat, you still have so much to kind of gain by listening to your peers, listening to your colleagues, listening to, of course, senior musicians. And this city provides all of that at the various levels of building a career. So, and in that aspect, I feel really, really fortunate to have been able to move here. It would be really great to see a sense of community to develop among the young Hindustani musicians of my generation. I know that these communities exist in pockets, in different cities, in different localities, but a kind of larger coming together of this generation, is important, because I think we're positioned at a very kind of crucial time in history where we can take this tradition forward in the way that we believe, with authenticity, with respect to the whatever we've inherited, but at the same time positioning it as contemporary practitioners. So showing how this music is still relevant. It's not an obsolete tradition that we're just that we're just maintaining like a museum artifact. It's very urgent, in fact, that we communicate to audiences the relevance and need for Hindustani music in this day and age. And I think the effectiveness of that will happen at a much greater level if the community comes together. It can't happen in individual efforts because the scale is just not enough. I also think that the community, the whole ecosystem of Hindustani music can benefit from the coming together of the community, because we have to have a larger vision for where this tradition is going. And if each musician is only looking at their personal trajectory, which I completely understand is necessary, that is just a practical reality of trying to be a musician in this time and day. However, that cannot be the one and only kind of focus of a career, because if we don't build a larger support system, there will be no community to perform and share the music with. So I think a lot of reflection is needed by artists, by youngsters, and a lot of honesty that requires putting, at times, personal interests below the interest of the development of the musical system altogether.